welcome back to the RV Shenanigan Podcast. I'm Ryan.
I'm Lauren, and together we are Millers in Motion. We are a husband and wife team from Texas, enjoying a new season of life in our Alliance Valor.
We are still in Fort Worth, Texas, in the exact same place we were when we recorded the last episode, because we are here for the holidays. And this past week was Thanksgiving, so we hope that everybody had an amazing Thanksgiving with family, friends, and did exactly whatever you wanted to. And Lauren gave a thumbs up for those of you that can't see. Oh, she's going to cough. Never mind. We're just going to comment because we're blowing through it. So, you feeling better over there?
Sure.
We're testing because we are going to be doing live podcast recordings at the Alliance RV booth during the 2024. Did I get that right?
Good job. You passed the memory
Next
quiz.
January is 2024 Florida RV Super Show. So if you're going to be in the area, make sure to stay tuned to our Instagram, Facebook, all the things, because we'll post when we're going to be doing those recordings. You can come join us.
Can we get that background noise where it's like the audience clapping? Yay!
Maybe. I bet I can do this on this board, but I don't know where or how. So we're still learning how we do this. But today we're going to talk about what we're sitting in.
Our kitchen.
Slide
our
box.
Slide box.
A ghost.
That's what I was going to say.
It's a Friends reference if you didn't see that or know what I'm talking about. But no, we're going to talk about our 2024 Alliance Valor 44V14 because we get a lot of questions.
We do, but rightfully so. This is a new floor plan this year, and we were one of the very first ones to have it, so we've gotten to work out some of the kinks.
We have. So we're going to come back and jump right into, well, technically we're already in it. We're going to get right into the topic. We're not going to jump back into the RV because we're in it right now. So let's get going. All right, so the 2024 Alliance Valor 44V14.
That's a lot of force.
It is a lot of force. That's okay. So there's a lot to know about this rig, mainly that it's one of the largest RVs that Alliance has ever made. Mm-hmm. And by one of, I mean the largest RV.
Yes.
So real quick, if you don't mind, we recently switched. I say recently. It's been 5 months now at the time of recording. When we switched from our Grand Design Solitude 390 RK to our Alliance Valor 44V14. So if you could do me a favor and just hit them a little bit with our Solitude, give them just some of the basic overviews and then why we switched.
So the Solitude was, 42 feet? Is that what it was? And had 2 axles, but just for frame of reference, 3 air conditioners. So it was still a big boy, just not quite as big as this one. That was our first RV, so go big or go home, I guess, at that phase. That was the first one we purchased, the first one we towed. It was all kinds of new, and we really did enjoy it, but you know, life changed and our needs changed. And so we ended up finding the need more so for a toy hauler and also something that was laid out a little differently where he had more of a dedicated working space. So we looked at a lot of toy haulers and it was somewhat difficult to find a floor plan that I think fit us the most until we laid eyes on this beauty.
We did. And I will say one thing about the Solitude as well is we really actually did like the Solitude. For me, the towing side wasn't the best because the kitchen was in the back. It was so heavy in the rear that it kind of made for a weird load balance thing. So when you're towing, so it was really stressful to tow.
It was, but once we got where we were, it was very homey and functioned well as far as like vacation and everyday life, except for working necessarily for you. Yeah,
and what she's talking about is we had a kind of kitchen bar dinette. Imagine this being like overlooking your living room space. And that also happened to be my office. And so when on a weekend and I'd have to work or be on a call and she would come in, she'd literally have to go lay in the bedroom to just get away from it.
No. Let's rephrase that. I didn't have to. I would because he has the world's most fantastic ADD. And even if I sat perfectly still in the living room, he could still see me. And that was enough distraction. Out there? Yes. I'm kind of surprised we have the blinds open right now. So it's not a dig. It's just in order for you to be most productive.
It's not a dig if it's the truth. Rude. Okay. So let me give you a few stats on the 44V14. And if you're watching on YouTube, yes, I was having Lauren stall because the website was not loaded. My bad. So the 44V14 from Alliance is 45 feet 8 inches in length, a height of 13 feet 4 inches, a dry weight of 16,040 pounds, a GVWR or gross vehicle weight rating of 20,000 pounds. The hitch weight is 3,100 pounds, and it's got a 98-gallon freshwater tank. It's got 106 gallons of black water tank gray water, and that is divided amongst 2 tanks, and a 93-gallon black tank, which is divided amongst 2 tanks. So, before we get into our thoughts on it and some of the features we like, maybe some of the stuff we dislike too, what was the big reason why we decided toy hauler? Not even necessarily this toy hauler, but toy hauler in general.
Mostly for your office space, is really the biggest one, where you can make some modifications and have some more room and a proper desk space. He does a lot of work from the computer, and that just wasn't as conducive at, the dining room table. So that was a big reason. But also now we have the toy hauler space with the bed and the separate bathroom, so that my mom, if she so chooses, can come with us, which is something she's expressed a lot of interest in doing.
And hasn't yet, but that's okay.
Well, she has some other reasons why she can't just at this point, but yes, in the near future.
So, yeah, and I think the biggest thing too is there's a couple of different factors. When you're picking your first RV, and we decided full-time in that RV, when we were looking, there was a lot of, ooh, this would be great. Ooh, that would be great. And we made a lot of decisions that weren't based on what the reality of what her and I were going to use.
But we didn't know that necessarily.
Right. And I would say if you're picking your first RV, just, find something versatile, I think is probably the most overlooked thing. Because if you can have 2 or 3 uses for one thing, that's normally a win in RV life.
Right. And since this was our first one, the Solitude, we set low goals. And there were 3 top goals. And we hit each of those 3 goals. Mm-hmm. But as, time would find out, we didn't really need to meet those as much as we thought we did. Right. We actually had other goals. And one of them that made a lot of difference was it being very homey. And I still think we hit that nail on the head.
I do. That was less of a concern for me. That was a you thing.
Absolutely.
For me, I just wanted something that would prove that we wanted to do this lifestyle. And I didn't want to be restricted by the coach. And to be honest, to a point, I did feel a little bit restricted because it wasn't the easiest thing to work inside of from what I do every day, because I didn't have a dedicated office space. I constantly was moving and adjusting and doing things. And then on top of that, let's say we were in a travel day, for us to be able to get to just the refrigerator, we had to open 2 slides.
Yeah, we didn't really think about that a whole lot whenever we sat in it.
No, we didn't. We just said, oh, this is nice and open. There's tons of seating. All these people can stay with us. We can seat 1,800 people in here.
You don't need to seat 1,800 people. I'm going to give you a little hint.
You don't. Honestly, whoever is going to be with you most of the time, worry about them. Everybody else will figure it out. That's what camping chairs are for. But, the biggest thing for me about the toy hauler thing, I really wanted to achieve a couple of things. Like you had already said, a dedicated workspace it wasn't just somewhere to sit and I didn't have to constantly move my computer, but somewhere where I could actually close a door and separate it. And so when I was done working, I could hypothetically reset to a different space. You would be surprised if you work from home, especially in an RV, just having that little bit of separation of I'm not at my desk, I'm not working, and how much it doesn't mess with your head. You still kind of work all the time, but it is a little bit of a separation.
And bonus for me, I got the washer and dryer out of the closet, so I got more closet space now in the Alliance.
And then the second thing for me was I wanted to have something that worked more functionally for us on travel days. And I say that twofold. One, I wanted something with a little bit larger cargo capacity. We were always at the top end of our GVWR and our Solitude, just because we were full-timing, and we actually had more space than we had weight capacity to do things. And then I also wanted to be able to function a little bit better with the space. So I didn't want 5 slides. I really was trying to limit the number of slides we had. And I wanted to be able to very easily, pull off on the side of the road and pop 1 and 2, all whatever we could do, slides open, and kind of be functional a lot faster. Because our kitchen was in the back and the other one, we had to go through great measures to secure everything. And even if we could open the slides up, it was never the easiest thing to still use, because if we when you cracker dock at a Cracker Barrel or a Harvest Host and you can't put one side of your slides out, you pick the one you can. It was always a little bit of a pain not having those other slides out. In this rig, I feel like when that happens, it's not as big of a deal because we're not really losing anything on the slides that aren't out, minus being able to walk around the bed and having a little more living room space.
Well, and we won't even go down the rabbit hole that is Schwintek versus cable slides and all of the above.
Yeah, and I do think if you're looking at RVs, there's all kinds of mechanical systems to move slides in and out, and there's no joke that Schwintek has its problems, but it has its place too. Cable has its problems, and it has its place. And then I think everybody would just prefer a rack and pinion hydraulically driven one because they don't seem to ever break, which is what our main two slides are. So we actually on this coach don't have any Schwintek slides.
Woohoo!
Let's just say we didn't have the best experience. I'm sure there's people out there that are great, but we never had the best experience with Schwintek. So, okay. So that's kind of why we did it. So then let's very briefly, why did we actually decide to go with an Alliance?
So mostly actually for the customer service was the big one. I think that most RVs are going to have problems, and that's not something that any of us are blind to. But we just want to know that somebody is standing behind that and ready to help you when things do happen.
Right. And I will say, too, that, we, at the previous Florida RV Super Show, we got to know the management and ownership group with Alliance a little bit, and just how they reacted and talked to people. That's something that we pay close attention to, because if you're touting all this stuff about customer service and we want to do the right thing and all that other stuff, you always kind of want to see some verification in their actions. And I can tell you, watching them just at the show alone sold me on that they're telling it how it is there, essentially.
Yeah, and also they have a great community. There are a lot of events, and there's a lot of socialization that goes into it. And so the community that Alliance has, and that wasn't necessarily built by the company per se. There are a lot of owners who really feel strongly that help build that.
Yep. And so now kind of narrowing that down, we kind of had said, okay, toy hauler, we really like Alliance. So in full disclosure, we were completely sold on which one?
The 40V14?
Not this one. And so, and we were talking with, again, some of the people in the management group, and we were saying, oh, we may actually do this, coach. We really like it. We weren't ready at the last Tampa show to actually pull a trigger.
Right.
We just weren't. And so we kind of went with the intent for social media and to do what we do as far as like documenting. And this just happened to be a fun bonus. And one of the guys said, well, if you're looking at 24, we have this new concept coming out. And without naming names, essentially kind of they described what it was. And we both looked at each other like, ooh.
Well, and let me say, you were fully sold on the 40V13. I was sold on it with some caveats of, yes, that works if we do X, Y, and Z to it. And so whenever we kind of described this floor plan, I said, ooh, the things that I really wanted had been done.
There's smaller changes. There's always going to be changes in an RV. I think that's like going into a home and being told this is what you get. In reality is if you're building a home, typically you get to pick the color of your cabinets, where things are located. There's a wall here, not there, that kind of stuff. In RVs, you don't get to do that. It's very much so, this is it. There's a couple of options, but they don't really affect anything. It's like bigger ACs and heat pumps and mechanical things. So, when we were described it, we immediately kind of said, and there was previously when they were designing the RV, there's two versions of it. We came into what affectionately got known as the Proto B. So it's Proto A, Proto B. There was one big change, and it all had to do with the sofa situation. And we kind of looked at it and said, well, we were never a big fan. So the 44V14 has a big L-shaped sofa in the living room that you do have to kind of stack and fold and do some things. It's very reminiscent of the Grand Design Momentum 395. But there is one less couch. So the L shape itself is bigger, but there's not an L shape on this side, and it has a bigger garage. So more of a traditional toy hauler. We just wanted more physical space. When you're looking at toy haulers, there's not a lot of them out there that have a ton of living space. They're typically toy haulers. So all the space is in the garage.
Well, and I'm also going to say on the couch thing, having to move a whole leg of it or store it or this or that totally defeated the purpose of being able to move easier on travel days. So that was a hiccup of mine of, moving a desk, moving a couch, something.
For us. And I say for us only because it's just the two of us. Now, if you have a family of 5 and you just really want a toy hauler space, that L-shaped sofa might be the ticket. But that's also, you kind of have to understand that's one of the downsides of having a larger family on the road is you do have to work a little bit more for the things you want. And we've realized what we are willing to work for, like hauling a smoker all over the country, and things that we're not willing to work on, like one extra seat. And we do have extra seating, and we're using them right now. So as far as the modifications we wanted to make, actually, I'm jumping ahead of myself.
Ooh, tisk tisk.
I need to slow my roll.
That's what your notes are for.
I know, and that's why I'm going back to them right now. So what sold you after we actually got to see the 44? What was the big, like, yep, that's it?
Okay, trick question. I never got to see it.
You did never get to see it.
I never got to see it till after we had paid for it.
Hang on. You physically, you saw pictures, and I described stuff. So when we were going through the process, quick sidetrack here.
Squirrel.
Right. Because we knew we were going to be so early, the team at Alliance was super nice, and they allowed us to see some pre-production stuff. And I say that in terms of photos, because I'm not just going to haul up there for no reason. And then they invited us, because we were considering buying, they invited us from a social media perspective to attend the national rally last year. If you watch any of the YouTube videos, you probably saw that kind of why should you buy an Alliance, the national rally. Well, we had not committed to buy an Alliance at that point, but they did say, hey, do you want to come see Proto B or Proto 2? And I said, absolutely. Which ends up, things changed, but the basic floor plan as far as the size of the slides and everything was set. And so I got to see it then. And then I took as many pictures as they would let me just to send to Lauren. If you notice, we never posted any of those. Alliance, don't come at me. But I sent Lauren some photos, and she essentially said, I think I like it, and then asked my opinion on a few things. And I told her the best of my ability of my thoughts on it. And we both agreed that the L-shaped sofa wasn't our gig, and that we would replace it one way, somehow, some way, at some point.
But that was a negotiable thing. You can do that.
Right.
And so that wasn't, a really big ticket item to us, because we can always change that. It's like changing the mattress.
Which we did too.
But for me, Ryan is 6'2", and so I wanted to make sure, I said, how's the space? How do you fit in the kitchen? How do you fit in the bathroom? Because those were significantly smaller than they were in our Solitude.
They are, and we got really spoiled with certain things in the Solitude. I always say this, that design Solitude bathroom might be the perfect RV bathroom.
It really did spoil
for a couple. And I only say that because it's more than you need. I honestly do think it's more than you need, but it's not so big that you're wasting space other places.
It didn't feel too big. Like there was more storage than either of us needed, but maybe somebody else has more makeup or something than I do. I don't know. But yes, there was a ton of storage. There was 2 sinks. And my beloved teak seat in the shower. And then there was a whole like pantry for your towels and medicine cabinet. I mean, it really was glorious.
Yeah, it was. And we definitely, that's probably the biggest trade we had, because, most RVs don't have the biggest bathrooms, and it's no secret. Toy haulers have the smallest of all of them. Our bathroom is probably a quarter the size it was.
Yeah, I would.
Third, maybe?
A third. I would agree on a third.
We gave up quite a bit still.
We did. We gave up quite a bit.
So I will say the shower is, in my opinion, I actually like the shower better. It is technically smaller, but there's more headroom. Again, not much. That other one was great, but there was also a lot of, in my opinion, wasted space inside of there.
I like room for activities.
Well, when you're lounging in there on the teak seat.
Exactly, with the teak
got
seat.
Your feet kicked up, taking a steam shower somehow.
That's right. Turn it into a sauna and run that hot water out.
Good thing humidity is not a problem in RVs.
Hey, they come with fans for a reason.
So that's probably the biggest space that we traded off. But when it comes to the living room for a toy hauler, it's a great space.
Yes, and we say all of this knowing. We know the sacrifices we made. We know the decisions we made, and we are happy.
So also, if you are watching this or listening to this and you are curious what we're talking about, we do have a tour video right before we left the factory, before we had made a single change. And then we did a video about a month later after we had moved into it and some of the things we had changed already. So if you are curious, I'll link those videos in the description below so that you can click through and check those out.
And then a couple weeks ago, we made more changes.
I think that's just part of it. I mean, we're always making changes. Yeah, just look for updated mods. So about the floor, is there anything you would change about the floor plan?
About this one, the 44?
Where we currently stand going forward.
No. So the things that I wanted changed, we were very kind of small in the grand scheme of things.
Which is great.
Exactly. So the idea that we could change the couch from the L shape to just the one in the slide box, there were some things in the pantry that didn't work for us, so we changed that out. So the rest of it is nuances. We went from a house with a toilet in a closet in the bathroom to the Grand Design that had a proper door and everything. And now these little slidey barn doors with, a 4-inch gap at the top. I like a little bit more privacy than that. So if there was a way to kind of close that off, I would like that a little bit better. I would switch out the oven. It's little things that I would change. But as far as the actual floor plan, no, I'm really happy with it.
And I will say, like, she talks about the oven, and that's a loaded question because this one fits everything our other one fit. Most people want to switch an oven out because they want a bigger one. We actually don't care for a bigger one. So there's 2 versions of like a residential style. I'm using air quotes if you're just listening to this. There's the insignia that everybody uses, including Alliance and the Paradigms. Come on, Alliance. And then there's the Greystone or Blackstone. I think it's Greystone. Which is fine. And I know why they use this one now. I did get an answer to that question.
Ooh, tell me.
It's not as wide and it sits taller. And so it fits in smaller spaces a little better than the insignia does. So barely, but it's enough for them to round edges and do a few little cosmetic things that apparently make a very large difference. I don't know. I haven't seen the other version of it. So
I would like to test the insignia so I can give feedback.
Okay. Anyway, so we had an insignia in our Solitude. That's probably the one thing we missed the most from the Solitude is because we did like that. We trusted the temperature, all this stuff. And this one hasn't been bad. The temperature's been a little more RV-esque, so it's a little more of a moving target.
We got one of those little thermometers that goes inside of it, and even that thing was like, maybe.
Right. And so we're getting along. But that's not an Alliance product. All they do is make the decision to put it in at that point.
Right. And that's why I say it's not the floor plan. The floor plan, I think, actually works really well for us. It's the little things. And
just talking about some big differences, too. So something on most Alliances they do is they call this package called the Masters of 12 Volt.
Ooh,
Do you know what that means?
12 volt. Sure, why not?
So you're just saying yes, and then you're going to wait for me to say something about it?
I know that the fridge is 12 volt, and that leaves a little to be desired.
It's an RV fridge.
Which precisely because we had a residential fridge in the Solitude, and that thing came with an ice maker, and was, again, I'm going to put this in the category of glorious. It worked really well.
So the downside of that means, though, on travel days, you then have to have at least a 2,000 watt inverter and a decent battery system. So that means they would have to install an extra inverter and an extra battery automatically. And that fridge is wider, so you probably lose the pantry. So there's give and takes on that. Now the 12 volt fridge runs directly into the 12 volt systems, which means no inverter is needed, and you don't need a ton of battery because its capacity system is very low as far as its energy consumption. So outside of that, there's 2 TVs that are 12 volt, the one in the garage, the one in the bedroom. The one in the living room is still a 110 because it's a residential. Even if it was a 12 volt when we got it, I put a better TV in, therefore it was automatically going to happen. So yes, I like good technology. I
will say I like this fireplace heater in the Alliance better than I did the one in the Grand Design. I think this one is more true to temperature. And I think that it actually shuts off and cycles better than the other one did.
I just wish it had a remote.
Yeah, I do too.
Because it's in an awkward place. They have a mantle above it, which is great. Aesthetically, it looks great. But it is a little hard, especially being 6'2". This is where the downside of 6'2" comes in, is to see that gauge, I have to get down on my knees and kind of be able to tap the button and be able to see it. And I wish you could go up and down with the temperature instead of having a cycle. So if you miss your temperature, you got to go all the way back around by like 50 degrees.
Well, and also, so all the controls are on the very bottom of it. So the dog turns it off and on frequently. Scares her. It's a whole thing. So yes, if you could move the controls, that would be phenomenal.
So is there anything else about the floor plan, or let's just say the stuff inside of it, that really, really like, really dislike? We're learning some things like the Happy Jack system we're learning. I like that it's versatile because I use the bottom portion of the Happy Jack. Happy Jack is the rear toy hauler space that moves the bed and benches. If you leave them, for us, it is now my office desk that goes up and down. And I've learned to use it, but that was new for me.
Not in particular. I really like the living room, dining room setup. I think that functions really well for what we needed and what we wanted. I love the big open windows. As if you're watching on YouTube, you can see behind us.
Which that's a big Alliance thing. We have essentially this size window. We have about 3 of those. There's 1 here and there's 2 behind you guys. Again, if you look at the tour, you can see that. And there's still a bunch of other windows. I counted them the other day, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 14 or 15 windows in this thing. So, and how they work too is they open side to side. So they're not frameless on the outside, which some people have said they prefer the frameless look. I don't care personally. It's not a big enough difference aesthetically that
This lets so much airflow through.
Right. That's one of the complaints I had about the Solitude was airflow kind of was rough. Like when I was boondocking before we got the solar system in the Solitude during RV Unplugged, that's the one thing everyone's like, just open your windows. I'm like, they are.
They are. Boop.
Right. Now the bonus is you can leave them open when it's raining. These you really can't. But you open these up. We've had some pretty days, like when we were in Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
We opened all these windows up, and the wind comes through. Oh, it's magical.
Yes. So kudos to that. Whoever decided on the window structure. But no, other than that, I'm really happy. I think we learned to work in the smaller kitchen, and it works great for us. Yep. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the construction of, and this kind of goes for all Alliances. Obviously, we're talking specifically about our 44V14. It is a typical laminated sidewall, aluminum framed, and to a Lippert steel frame construction. So one big difference is they use Azdale on the outside and the inside of the wall. We've learned that Azdale is different. So if you're not familiar, Azdale is a composite material that's like laminate, but it's not, so it can't delaminate. So one of the problems that most laminated sidewalls are going to have is that if moisture gets between one of those panels, they'll delaminate. That's when you get like these bubble-looking things off typically on older campers because the laminate's not as good or the glue popped or whatever.
Or there was water damage and nobody revealed it, all that.
And so that's called delamination. Well, most coaches should never do that if they work properly. Still talking about RVs, things go wrong.
And if they've been cared for properly.
Correct. So that's why it's so important to make sure you check seals and all that kind of stuff on your roof and make sure you don't have water leaks. But Azdale can't do that, which is great. But especially on the inside, it's softer. And there's evidence right behind Lauren.
So we used to have like wooden chairs here at the dinette that we have since swapped out because they would ding the wall. And it does not take much. I am not like a heavy-handed person. And
I am, but that's not my side. So
that's why you get the wooden fridge.
It is actually why we picked it because there's a wall here and then the fridge is right on the other side of that.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, there's lots of dings back there. And you still have your own fair share of dings back there.
I do. Yeah, I just take chunks out of wood. But yeah, we've definitely kind of had to adapt. Like even when the dogs are playing, make sure that they don't like slam into any of it. Luckily, there's not a lot of super exposed walls.
And in case you were wondering, yes, that does happen when the dogs slam into things wrestling.
Yeah, they do zoomies through here. They'll run all the way from the toy hauler space up to the bedroom. So toy hauler space is that way, bedroom's that way. But yeah, there's not really a whole lot of spaces where they can ram into it too hard, except for by the stairs, which they typically kind of slow down because of the stairs, which is nice.
One of them does.
That's true. But as far as the rest of the construction of the coach, it's been solid. I would argue it feels more solid than our Solitude.
You think?
That's a lot of S's.
Yeah, it is.
The only reason I say that because when you walk around in the Solitude, it always kind of cricked and creaked and all that stuff. I don't have that here, with the exception of the stairs, which are free floating, so I kind of get why they happen.
It is impossible to be quiet in this coach.
It is.
If you get up before the other person and you try to sneak down the stairs, it goes squeak.
Yeah. And then it wakes the dogs up, and then they make noise, and now we're just all up. And then you have those gaps in the doors Lauren was talking about.
Yes, and then the cabinets, which are soft close and magnetic, fantastic for everyday use, but you can't shut them quietly. So it gets real close and goes clink.
Yeah,
whenever
the magnets are so strong. It's like what was that? Someone's breaking in.
When the rig's quiet, it's very loud, but it functions well.
So, what have you noticed, and this isn't a direct response to just Solitudes, but what really sets the 44 apart from other Alliance coaches or just other RVs in general?
To me, it's just the floor plan. It's the use of space. I didn't see anything like this whenever we looked at toy haulers, and that was always our biggest concern was, do we get a floor plan that really, truly works for us?
And we found there are comparable floor plans to this. Mm-hmm. We've said for a long time, we think that what's the toy hauler that we always say has the best floor plans?
Oh, the voltage.
So the voltage, I really like the floor plans of the voltage. That's literally where my like stops. And not to just bash on voltage, but we don't want vents in the floors because of the dogs. We prefer them up. Alliance doesn't do floor vents. They're all up. Grand Design doesn't either. That's why we picked them. Everything feels a little cheaper sometimes in the voltage, which sucks, but I do think the layouts are phenomenal. And I wish that Alliance would maybe take some notes.
They did. They created
did.
the 44.
But with that being said, there are similar floor plans out there. Like I referenced the Momentum 395, which is technically an M class, I believe,
Yes.
if I get that all right. It's really close. The biggest difference in this and that, if the floor place was similar, is obviously the TV's in a different place. The slides are different, but there's like no pass-through storage, none.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And so like that was the closest one. I really liked that floor plan. But the caveat for me was, no joke, if you like went through a pass-through door, for starters, it's the smallest pass-through door you can imagine. So it's only about this wide. And for those of you that are listening to this, we're talking about maybe 24 inches wide. But as far as deep, it only comes to my elbow. So you're maybe I'll give it 3 just to be nice, feet deep. And that's your exterior pass-through storage. That's
Yeah,
it.
That was a big deal breaker on a lot of the floor plans for us.
So it felt like in a toy hauler, if you wanted a decent living room, you gave up all your storage. And then it had typical front storage where it just had the one big door. Most Grand Designs have the same thing, the one big door, but then you had your generator in there. And then you just had a little bit. And then you're not supposed to stack stuff up on top of your generator prep.
Hopefully that's not news to any of you listening.
And if it is, shame.
So, and I know that this is me wanting to have my cake and eat it too, but I wanted a couch
Wait,
and a
there's
dinette.
cake?
There's always cake. But yes, I wanted a couch and I wanted a dinette. There are a lot of nice floor plans, but they only had a couch or you had to eat at the bar or something like that. And that's what we were coming from. Right. So I still wanted to keep a little bit of homey aspect in that regard.
Sure. And that for us was always what kind of steered us away from that type of a coach. And then when they started talking to us about what became the 44, my first question was like, well, what's the storage? Like everything is going to look just like the 40V13 exterior wise. Now, obviously it's going to be longer, and then they have a new decal package, which we'll talk about in a second, but all of it's going to be exactly the same. So the same pass-through size, all of that. It's just physically going to be a longer frame. Therefore, everything from the rear back. Also, Alliance does a couple of kind of cool things in the rear as well. So you do have a fuel tank on board as well, which I didn't talk about on the stats. I'm sorry. You have 2 30-gallon gasoline tanks in the back, one for your generator and one for the toys. We use that as a backup for the generator, and we just use the fuel pump and we just transfer from one tank to the other. And then on the other side, they actually install an air compressor in its own little box.
And that was a learning curve for us because we just went, yay, air compressor. We didn't really ask a lot of questions.
No, we didn't. And that's fine because it's still, so it's a Morite air compressor, which they don't typically make air compressors for a bunch of other, they only make them for like OEM stuff. You can't go buy one. But it does have a 100-pound capacity. And to get to 100 pounds, it takes a while. And so if you were to use it on your trailer tires, for instance, you might need to get up to 110 to 115 PSI, which that can't do. It can take you to 100. So depending on what PSI you run at, it either works or it doesn't work. And apparently you have to pack your patient pants when you're using it because it does take a minute. So we're actually having the conversation at the moment because now that it's cooling off, our trailer tires or our truck tires have all done the sensor now where it's like, hey, you're low because as, again, like we talked about last week's episode, a little learning science time, as everything cools, your pressure is going to decrease in your tires. And so you have to add a little bit of air. But then in the summer, you got to remember to take some of that back out as pressure changes again and expands. So, you know, we're talking about, do we get a Viair that gets us to like 125 max so that we have it, plus that can a little more versatile, you can move it around if you need to, that kind of stuff. But it isn't somewhere else that we could actually wire into a 12-volt Viair back there if we wanted to take that one out. Or like what apparently it's designed for, use it for toys, so like inflatable stuff and all that, which I wouldn't mind an inflatable kayak.
I'm sorry, did I hear a sponsorship for that come through?
I did not either. So as far as construction of the coach goes, there's not, I mean, it's an RV. I've been super happy with the construction of it.
I have to.
I mean, you know, even when we took delivery of our Solitude, there were some trim pieces that had come off
Of
and
course.
all that. We really didn't have, I mean, yes, we had a few little minor things. it wasn't even worth telling Alliance, just stick it back up.
That's right. And you know what? It's called a shakedown trip, that first one, for a reason, and every RV is going to do that. So no, I've been very happy with that. My overall takeaway on the Alliance is that anything Alliance did is really good. And so like the way that they put things together, their construction, their communication, customer support, that's all been fantastic.
So I did actually I have a whole section here that says customer service. And so, but before that, just to kind of put a little proof in the pudding, if you may, so in our pantry, we had some drawers at the bottom of it. Jeremiah, I appreciate you trying to put drawers in there, but no. They took our feedback and actually stopped doing drawers and just put the removable shelves the rest of the way down. But those drawers were not they were like a third of the width of the pantry, and there's only 3 of them. So like for every one drawer you lost, like you could have had 2 more above and below it, or 1 more above and below it. So 2 extra drawers. So it just didn't make a lot of sense. And so we removed them. Well, we finally got the removal done correctly, slowly, and without destroying anything. And she took the fascia board off of the cabinet and turned around and was like, wow. And it had like 4 or 5 socket holes for carriage screws to screw. So a socket hole, they have to drill kind of on a side so you can square up a drill to get into a wood, like when you're building cabinetry. And no joke, it had 4 like just on the top. So it had, I just talked my microphone, sorry. I think it had probably about 20 total.
It was an insane amount. Those things were secure.
Right. And that was the most solid thing I've ever seen in my life. And so just that in itself is like a testament to what Alliance is building. Now, with that being said, we've had issues with our refrigerator. But that's not so. And this is what's difficult about it is when you're calling into a customer service department, understand what you're calling about. Alliance doesn't make refrigerators. No, they buy a ton, but they don't make them.
And so their hand is kind of limited in what they can do to help you.
And so, and I will say that we had issues on our Solitude too. I will tell you that when we had a third-party vendor issue on our Solitude, it was rather hard at Grand Design to get some help.
The oven wasn't as hard. It wasn't. I broke the knob on the oven. That's not Grand Design's or anybody's fault. But the fact that it had to be replaced was Insignia's design flaw. Right. But anyways, so yes, we did have to go through a third party on that one as well.
So what I'm referring to is we have an Everchill 12-volt refrigerator, and one of the parts that allows cooling in the refrigerator section had failed. And so we contacted Alliance the normal way that anybody contacts Alliance. Just because we have the podcast and the videos doesn't mean in any capacity that we went a different direction than most people would. We emailed and called the same phone number that's listed on their website that anybody else does.
And we gave our VIN number. We did not say, we are Miller's in Motion.
Make happen.
We did it the way everybody else does it.
Because I'm pretty sure if I did that, they'd look at me and go, we don't care. But in doing that, about 24 hours goes by, and I sent a fairly detailed email kind of explaining what's going on. I provided some pictures, and we did have a handful of things, like some trim pieces here and there, but the big one being the refrigerator. I like to, believe it or not, I like my beer cold. And I like milk cold, and I like to keep things refrigerated. And it just wasn't doing that. In fact, it's sitting at about 72 degrees in the refrigerator, and the freezer's at like 0. And so they sent out a spec sheet and said, we need you to hire a mobile tech or somebody to come out and do some testing. If you can do it, great. If not, do this. So I did that, responded to them. And I'm not, no joke, that I forget the person's name. I want to say Jordan, but that's not right. At Alliance, I didn't go 24 hours without talking to him when we were having that initial conversation, all through email, even to the point when I sent everything back that he requested, and he sent it on to, so Everchill is owned by Lippert. Most things are owned by Lippert, if you haven't figured that out yet.
Apparently, it's like the mafia.
The Elkhart Mafia. And so they sent it over to Lippert. They actually CC'd me on it, and he said that he CC'd just for transparency. That was refreshing. It
really is. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing that.
And so, and the person at Lippert responded. Now, obviously, it was all directed there. And then he kind of mentioned, like, hey, this is really not, like, don't interject. Let me have the conversation. And he goes, I'm on your side. And there was a couple of times I got frustrated through the process because not everything can move as fast as you want it to move. If something's broken, you want it fixed yesterday.
Especially when it's your fridge, something you use every day.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, with that, they found out in what parts needed to be fixed, We think, we hope. We have not. The parts actually came today, and so we haven't installed them yet. So I'm hoping that fixes it. But if it doesn't, for some reason, then we may have to replace the whole fridge, which is just ridiculous. But he went out of his way to continually update me, which was, again, refreshing. I only got updates from other companies when I call them and when I reached out. And it still took time to get an answer because then they had to find out, whereas the Alliance had been reaching out to me as we go. And just to put the cherry on top was, they were always there to at least answer and respond, even to a point where, and I know this is a little bit because we know these guys, but other people on the team reached out to make sure we were doing okay with the fridge being down. Again, that could be just because we know them, and they just happened to look it up because they knew we were having a problem. But we had gotten at least 2 separate people responding, asking if it had been fixed yet.
So at the end of the day, communication is key. Even if there's no information particularly to be relayed, knowing that you haven't been forgotten was huge, because there were several times with the Grand Design that, they'd say, oh, no news is good news, we're working on it. No, that doesn't fly as well. And so just having that communication from Alliance helped us feel, I don't want to say important, but like they actually cared.
All right. Is there anything else on our 44 you'd like to talk about?
Nope. I think I've hit all my highlights.
Okay. Well, we're not done, but we're going to take a quick break, and I've got a surprise for Lauren coming on the backside.
This is all a surprise.
Stay tuned with us for a second. All right, well, Thanksgiving has come and gone. We're moving into the holiday season, and we're going to play a little game. Are you ready?
I'm never ready for your shenanigans.
And I will say she has absolutely no idea what's coming.
I really don't, but that's common. That's most days.
I purposely didn't tell her about this at all, and I didn't hardly write any of it down because of that, because she looks at my notes. All right, we're going to play a game, and it's called Rapid Fire Gift Guide. I don't know. I didn't think about the name. This was poorly devised, but so
I feel like you're cheating already.
A little bit.
The rules change as you go along, huh?
Well, it is my game.
Precisely.
And I'm not really playing. I'm hosting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, but they're all meant to be like what your favorite product is to solve a problem, kind of a thing.
Interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to say, like, for instance, what's your favorite bathroom accessory in the bathroom?
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting.
What is it? Quick. Come on.
I have no idea.
Pick something. Rapid fire. It's the point of the game.
Bathroom accessory. You started in a very awkward place, but he also likes to start with
health
potty
and
talk.
beauty.
I'm so confused right now. Hold on. Let me think about it.
Well, it's a podcast. That's dead air. You got to just say something.
Well, you can talk if you want to.
How about we start easier then?
Let's do that in a less confusing place.
So that's the name of the gist. So what's your favorite kitchen accessory that we've added onto the rig?
That we've added onto the rig?
Could not come with the RV.
I like our air fryer.
Okay.
I really do, because you don't have to heat up the whole oven, and you don't have to deep fry things and use open flames. So those make my safety heart happy.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is your favorite, like, personal safety on the rig? So, like, the dog safety, our safety, something along those lines.
So I think, you can use both of these kind of interchangeably. Like the ring, you can do the ring system, you can do alerts for, like water alerts and this and that. But the Govee, if we got the right sensors, could also do that, right? You said that at one point.
Yeah, it's different sensors, but yes.
And so I like the temperature and water sensors.
So we'll just say across the board, like a notification system for things that should not be happening that are happening.
Yes, exactly.
So that is the aspects of our ring security system, which is a safety thing. We have a security camera system that goes all the way around the coach, but you're specifically referring to the water sensors that we have placed, like behind the washer dryer, underneath, in different areas where there could be leaks. So if there is one, we know.
Absolutely.
Combined with our temperature and humidity sensors, that lets us know if the temperature's out of whack, so that if we're boondocking and something's happened to the solar setup, that the dogs are okay.
Yes. And also, the ring can incorporate the fire alarms, the listeners, the CO2 listeners, that sort of stuff. So, yeah, that.
Favorite piece of technology we've added to the rig? She's not the technology person.
I am not the techno person. So I'm going to leave this as broad as my brain lets me. The internet. I like that we can take the internet with us because that means that I can always use my laptop. I can work from the road and we can always watch TV.
Okay. You kind of did cooking. So what's your favorite?
I beat him at his own game. He can't even come up with questions.
Here's the problem is it's the bathroom one again, but I'm trying to phrase it correctly that you have a response.
It's a bathroom for crying out loud.
But there's things up there that we use, like we installed the toilet paper holder, a different one in a different place. We're going to upgrade we've made upgrades to the shelving. We've that kind of stuff. So
okay, so then let me say that my favorite thing that maybe we've done to the bathroom is that we didn't do the glass doors. We have the curtain.
There you go.
Yes, because the doors weigh a lot. They're hard to clean. Oh no, they shatter. All kinds of things that are just a mess.
Not in this coach because we never had them. If you custom order a coach, you can say, "I don't want those things." By the way. Okay. That was the last of my questions. I'm sure I can come up with one.
All right. So I'm going to throw out kind of one of the things that we've bought for this coach that I like the most. And I don't think you can get away with this in a non-toy hauler.
Confused.
I know. Ta-da. The washer dryer. I love our GE washer dryer. It is not the Splendid. It's none of those. It's ventless. It does a phenomenal job. The clothes get clean. They smell great. It's just a little bit bigger, I think, than the Splendid. So I don't think it would fit in the closet spaces if you don't have the toy hauler. But I love that. And I love that we can always do our own laundry.
So I will say that being able to do our own laundry has been one of our big things. We're not necessarily germaphobes, but we just have a very particular way, and I don't like other people's stuff.
He doesn't like laundromats either.
I don't. They always smell like cigarette smoke, and I have yet to been to a laundromat that I went, that was nice.
And I mean, even the one here at our campground, but it's been fine, and we've used it, but that's just not our preference.
No, I'd prefer to have my own machine that I know that I've maintained the hygiene of it and all that stuff. So, but yeah, we have the GE. I think GE is making some phenomenal things that can work in RVs, but aren't necessarily meant. So if you do go looking for any of these types of things, just understand your space. I'm pretty sure none of the products would have worked in our Solitude.
I agree.
I will say, she did mention we have a combo washer dryer that is ventless. So it's a compressor-driven dryer. It holds water in a reservoir and then pumps it out through the drain from the washer if it has enough in there to pump it. And then it also can use that water for a steam cycle if you so choose. I will say it's heavier than the Splendid, significantly heavier. But because we put it in our toy hauler space, that was less of an issue for us. And just be aware, we had this conversation the other day. If I had the option of venting, I would vent. And only because it's faster. It takes, probably about a third of the amount of time longer to dry clothes. And it does take a while sometimes. Towels, like if I throw 3 towels in there, it takes 4 hours just to dry. And so not the end of the world, but just a few things to know. So, okay. Well, that is going to do it for us this week. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget, we are coming to the Tampa RV show. We're going to be doing some live podcasts. You can find out updates on not just that, but everything if you follow us over on Instagram or Facebook. Everything for us is Millers in Motion.
You can also sign up for the newsletter, and we will reach out to you monthly and give you the latest updates.
You can find all those links in the description below. Just click on that guy, and it'll take you to pretty much whatever you want to find. So thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you or talk to you. I got to remember to say talk to you next week. Travel safe.